Day, captive audience, and it's raining over here. I don't know what it's doing like over there on your end.
It's raining in the West also. What can you say? It's
Yep,
beautiful.
yeah. It's the sky. It's not raining at this moment, and actually, the sky was really pretty right before I came in with some
Hmm.
clouds and a little bit of sun peeking through. And anyway, well, I'll tell you, Don, we are never at a loss for topics, and last week, we didn't have the war going on over in Israel,
Hmm.
and now this week we do. That is the biggest, the largest. That's what's eating up the airwaves. Is what's going on with Hamas attacking Israel. And actually, I did see. We were talking a little bit before our program. I did see actually on social media that Israel is being attacked by paratroopers. I think it was from the north.
Hmm. And the thing that's fascinating about this is, look, I don't claim to be a central intelligence agency expert or that sort of thing, but one thing's for sure: in that part of the world, they love to do dramatic things on anniversaries. And this attack was, I mean, almost to the day, the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur war back in '73. You would have to think, and intelligence agencies would be looking at that and thinking, we'd take an extra hard look at this day. Because every time some major event happens, it's the anniversary of something. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but the guy who assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, that was like the 500th anniversary of some major war in like Serbia. And every time you turn around, it's on an anniversary. You would think you'd be looking more closely at it. I think most of us just are we surprised that they're surprised? I think.
I'm surprised that they're saying that they're surprised by this, and yet we're hearing that Egypt had, I believe it was Egypt, had warned Israel about this, and we'll see what happens. Personally, for me, right from the beginning, when they said this was a surprise attack, I did not realize the anniversary until the media brought it up. And
Hmm.
I went, oh, and it was one day after the 50th anniversary. And, but I find it hard to believe that our intelligence and especially Israel's Mossad did not know about this coming.
Yeah, yeah. You really do wonder. Um, but we go down a rabbit hole of speculation with that one. Don't have anything factual for you on it, but given and would never even think about it, but for what we've seen over the last 5 years.
Yes, and what is exactly, because in the past 5 years, a lot of things have happened that we have been absolutely questioning, even more so, and that has not been what it's been purported to be.
Mhm.
So it is definitely time. It's you just
Well,
question things more. I
well,
mean,
rarely are things accidents. I mean, you think about, so remember, it's in distant memory now, but when Biden got in office, I don't think he was in office a year, and then they blew out of Afghanistan and left all those sophisticated weapons behind. And yeah, so where did those wind up? Um, Probably not in friendly hands, and they're probably being used against Israel right now, is my guess.
well, some in the media has purported that that's what they're seeing. Those arms are actually American arms, and that's what they're seeing. So I can only guess that that is what's happening, there.
Hmm.
And so, yes, then they are calling. I saw an article, I'm going to find it here, that actually it's a bipartisan group is saying we need to refreeze. It's actually here, refreeze the $6 billion to Iran. So I'm gonna post that, and
Hmm.
if I can get to it here correctly. Nope. I just so there is So the Democrats, so it's the vulnerable Democrats
Hmm.
have joined GOP colleagues calling for Biden to refreeze the $6 billion to Iran. And of course, it's going to be names that we're familiar with, like Joe Manchin,
Mhm.
Bob
He'll do
Casey,
anything,
John.
do anything to hold on to their seats.
That's exactly it. And these six are all in danger of losing their Senate seats in
Mhm.
2024. It's all about the politics, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but frankly, I support Biden refreezing the $6 billion. I find that it is no surprise that 2 weeks after they, the administration says, "Oh, we're doing a prisoner swap, and by the way, you're going to get $6 billion."
Mhm.
Um, that just frees up, and it's supposed to be for humanitarian aid and food and whatnot.
Mhm.
And so it frees up 6 billion of their other dollars to use for whatever. Is that coincidence? I don't think so. In fact, I don't really believe in coincidences
Yeah.
much.
You gotta
So
look
I
at.
like the idea of refreezing this money.
Mhm. Yeah, then you look at what's logical for Israel to do next, and what's rational. I mean, the rational thing is probably to take a lot of that land back from the Gaza Strip, just occupy it. I suspect that's what's going to happen, and then there'll be a whole lot of outcry around the world about doing that and killing women and children and the usual stuff, even though the enemy is hiding troops amongst the women and children. Um, if you're Israel, what else are you going to do? I mean, the other thing too is remember back in the '80s when they struck that nuclear plant in was it in Iran?
Yeah.
Um, you know, and we know they're all trying to develop a nuclear capability. Do another strike like that? I mean, this is like crazy stuff.
Well, it is. And we're on the brink, if not already in it, of a third world war with everything that's going on. And and it was the Taliban said, just give us passage and we're going to come and fight Israel. Just
Hmm.
give us passage. So I don't know. We're gonna see a lot with this, but I feel for the people of Israel and the innocents.
Hmm.
While governments play and government leaders play war games, it's the innocent civilians that are
Sure.
really taking the brunt.
Well, here's a food for thought thing for you. And again, it might sound like a big leap, but I wonder. So we've got the Democratic Party and you got to blame the Republicans, I guess, to a certain extent too. Our southern border is wide open, and who's coming across? Young men. I mean, where are the women at? Right? A number of people said, "Where are the women?" There's hardly any women. There's hardly any kids. Or young men coming across, and they're not just coming from Mexico either. They're coming from all over
No.
the world, and they're giving them money. They're putting them up in hotels. We talked about this last week in New York City. What are they going to do with them? Is this the October surprise? Are we going to get an invasion like Israel just experienced? Um, maybe that's our October surprise. Maybe that's maybe that's one of the many October surprises because there won't be just one. You know that.
Michael Yon, who's been down in the Darien Gap and in Panama for a long time and reporting on who is coming across our border, the waves of people that are coming. He has shown us military aged men from China. He has shown us a lot of military aged men. You make a very, very good point that are coming. It's not a lot of women and children. Yes, we see that. So let's see. Our media shows us women and children, but the reality is it's a whole lot of military age fighting men. And is that what's going to be coming here in America?
Oh, and you'd
That
think.
wouldn't surprise me, and I think it's prudent on everybody to be aware of situational awareness and what's around you, because something could happen at any time. And to your point of what the anniversary during our 9/11, not January 6th, that is no anniversary for me, but except I feel for those that are still incarcerated, in my opinion, illegally incarcerated. But on September 11, I'm always aware that anything could happen. Anything could happen
Right.
anywhere, quite for quite matter.
Yeah, I mean, the minds of people who think this way, they're infatuated with anniversaries. I'm pretty sure. Remember the event in Oklahoma City where they blew up the building? I think that was like an anniversary of the Ruby Ridge, for example, right?
Hmm.
So these people are infatuated with anniversaries, and they tend to do these events because it's a big show for them. Um, but nonetheless, yeah, if you think, put yourself in the mindset of the evil elite who run things. It's always been a dream of theirs to cause a collapse of the United States. Can't be defeated from the outside. The country's just too strong. You know, the two oceans, the two friendly countries. We talked about all of that. It doesn't have any. One of the things that's made the country so unique, and a constitutional republic like this could not have worked, I don't think, anywhere else, because you had constant invasions. Think about what happens on the African continent, the European continent, the Asian continent. It's invasion after invasion after invasion. Here, there's no invaders, right?
Yeah.
The only way to do it is to collapse it from within. And if you can do this internal invasion via illegal immigration, pretty clever. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. And today this morning, before I headed over to Tri-Cities, I was looking through some social media and I had read that I want to say it was, oh, the UK. The
mhm,
UK is wanting to um, expel some of the people that came across their border,
yes,
right? Because part of the European Union, it's a big, vast countries with no border, which is what they is happening, frankly, to America. But
mhm,
and something in the UK with the EU charter says that even though they have had Brexit and they have separated,
mhm.
they are not allowed to expel these unwanted immigrants into their country.
But the reality here is they can't. They wanted to. Who's going to force them to? International
Right?
law.
Who is going? You're exactly right.
International law is not real. I mean, how often do people ignore the United Nations, right? Um, a law is only as good as its enforceability. Um,
Well, yeah, yeah,
and the beautiful thing about Great Britain is they too, one of the things that allowed that country to become great was they're an island. So they didn't suffer all the constant invasions that France, China, Germany,
yeah.
you know, Nigeria, Egypt, right? They didn't have to worry about that. So, so they could easily just like say no. you know,
Yes, and around the world, there have been calls for the Palestinians to rise up and for um, it, there's a lot of, we've watched just in the last few days, a lot of protests, pro Hamas protests, and pro Palestine, anti Israel happenings. We saw that in Portland.
mhm,
And but I'll tell you, our Oregon leaders, and it's a bipartisan, have political leaders have pledged solidarity with Israel following the Hamas attacks. And, but we have in Portland riots, of course, and there's vandalism from that, which that doesn't surprise any of us that know about what's going on in Portland.
mhm,
And Black Lives Matter is going, they're supporting Hamas.
mhm. Well, there's a perfect example of the point I made a moment ago about a law is only as good as its enforceability. You have all the laws in the world. If you're not going to enforce them, you don't have a law, and that's why you have all that rioting and crazy going on in Portland. They don't have laws in Portland because they don't enforce them. Um, it's common sense.
That's exactly right, which is why the businesses are leaving, and it's a failing city. In fact, in this one story here, the pro Hamas Black Lives Matter organization is run by radical California professor who defended Louis Farrakhan.
Oh, well, you remember the people who started Black Lives Matter were basically radicals who were totally anti-constitution, anti-family. They said it right on their website before they finally took it down. So there's no surprise here, whatsoever.
No, it isn't. And so, if anybody has any thought of, well, Black Lives Matter is not doing any protests or whatnot, yes, they're still here. They're still around. They're just waiting for the order or for the opportunity, I should say, to get active again and do more destruction, in DC, in Portland, and anywhere else that they've got a lot of people. Um,
All of this, I tell you, Sonny, is just a twist on tyrants everywhere. When things aren't going well, they find a way to start a war someplace else. So that the people take their eye off of them and takes the blame off of them. Uh, uh, Ceausescu did that. Idi Amin did that. They all do it. Essentially, that's what Hitler did, right? You got to blame somebody else. You got
right.
to find somebody else to blame and go to war, and that keeps your eye off of them or off of the problems you're creating. Um, and I think to a certain extent, that's what you see here. I mean, there's no way Biden's going to get elected under any kind of normal conditions. There's just no way. Um, and so you've got to do something dramatic to make that happen. And stealing it again will be difficult. I mean, fool me once, shame on you. I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to still try it,
Right.
but that's going to be a lot more difficult to pull again. So, what strategy do we have now? Um,
Yeah, that's a good question. And in the comment here, has anyone heard about Friday the 13th? The leader of Hamas wants their followers to attack. And that's worldwide.
mhm,
Actually, I read that. Don't know that it's true, but I saw this through social media,
mhm,
and so But like I said, I don't know if it's true. I think we have to um, have discernment of what is real or what is a psyop
mhm,
out there, along with all of
mhm.
this.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I would think this is just my conspiracy brain that that sort of a thing would be closer to the election. I think when you really got to be worried about is September, October of next year. The stuff will be ready to hit the fan then for sure.
Well, if they have enough chaos, they can interrupt a lot of things for a long time.
Well, think of this: if
Uh,
you can create another COVID event of some kind, declare a national emergency, and then suspend normal operations because it's an emergency, much like the governor of New Mexico tried to do with the gun issue, right? We're
right,
going to suspend the Constitution, and not have elections because it's too dangerous to have them right now. I mean, just envision that. And so, which lever or levers do you pull for that to happen? Do you create a war? Do you create a nuclear event? Do you create a climate thing? You're going to call it that. You're going to release some new virus. Which
right.
one of these or all of these are you going to pull?
Well, and the war part's happening, and I think people are fed up with the shot. The war part's happening. They're going, well, that's not working. Maybe we need this. I don't know. But I something that is good is U.S. Georgia State University in Atlanta ended its partnership with a pro Hamas Palestinian uh, school after a Daily Caller's News Foundation report. And so it is the Al Quds Open University. They ended their partnership on Wednesday following a report that Al Quds had praised Hamas fighters as righteous martyrs. And Al Quds Open University in the West Bank designated Sunday, the day following the mass terrorist attack in Israel, as,
Mhm.
excuse me, a day to mourn the souls of the righteous martyrs and to denounce the occupation's continuing crimes against our people in the West Bank and Gaza. And the Israelis pulled out of Gaza. It's was it, I think, 2005.
Mhm.
And they pulled their people out of that area for peace.
Mhm. And look at what
This was a peace deal
they're never getting peace.
gone bad.
Right. And it's funny, and it points to people got to start paying more attention to where they can send their kids to school. I mean, yes, that's nice that they figured out they ought not support this outfit, but what in the world was Georgia State University doing supporting them in the first place? A taxpayer funded institution. eh, the solution to this is parents got to stop sending their kids to these. Why are you supporting that?
Well, you're absolutely right. And in fact, another story that we've got here out of the Daily Caller is House Republicans introduced legislation to crack down on foreign influence at U.S. universities. Well, you know what? The universities all want money, right? They're to fund their. It's a shame it's not funding more education. It's a lot of funding for sports, though.
That's it.
Sports is the big deal, right, Don?
It truly is incredible. I mean, there's a reason why this whole reorganization around the conferences and all this sort of thing is completely driven by money. Tradition out the window, right? Which tells you what it's about. The schools that have the winningest records are the ones that can charge the most tuition, because the reason that a lot of kids choose the kids school they go to, I hate to say it has nothing to do with academic performance or any of that. It has everything to do with your team's opportunity to be in the top 20, and whether they can be on game time on Saturday morning, with their with the logo of their university across their chest, and half drunk out of their minds. that that is what parents are paying for, and the rest of us, because these are taxpayer-supported universities, right? Um,
Well, then you have Biden forgiving their student
oh, to
loans,
boot. So the poor kid,
on
yeah.
top of that.
So the
So,
kid who's chosen to not go to college and go to work and do something productive, immediately is now paying the tuition for a middle class or upper middle class kid to go have a 4-year party. That's literally
yeah.
what's going on. It's
And
outrageous.
everybody has to remember there's nothing for free.
No, you can
You're
pay
going to
more than
pay
you.
for it
Yeah,
eventually.
yep.
So this bill it's looking like, which entitled the Defending Education Transparency and Ending Rogue Regimes Engaging in Nefarious Transactions, Deterrent Act. So that's what that spells out, the Deterrent Act.
Mhm.
So the legislation would specifically cut the foreign gift reporting threshold for colleges and universities from $250,000 down to $50,000, and with an even stricter zero threshold for countries of concerns. That would be a good thing. I hope it passes,
Well, I'll tell you another
and it's a shame that it takes something like this for that type of legislation to even the possibility for it to
Yeah,
pass.
see, here's another thing too. People don't think about. These colleges like these foreign students to come because they pay out of state tuition. That's more.
Yeah.
That's more bucks for them, right? So this isn't out of some altruism that they want to have more diversity on campus. This is about dollars and cents. You look at a lot of these schools; they are overrepresented by people who are not citizens of the United States. I mean, you know what? I would almost say, look, you'd almost think about you got to be a citizen to go to an American college. I mean, at least undergraduate. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, something like if there is a reason where you got some special science or knowledge that you bring to the table and you go to graduate school or PhD level work, okay, fine. But the other stuff, I, I'm leaning towards no, stop it. Because they're driving up, it's purely about money. Yeah, but
It is. So this bill would also close reporting loopholes and provide transparency to Congress, intelligence agencies, and the public. And it would require the disclosure of foreign gifts to individual staff and faculty at as research heavy institutions in order to protect those targeted the most by the US foreign adversaries. So in May, it was reported that the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, that's where Biden has his library, right?
mhm,
The Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement.
mhm,
At UPenn had received millions of dollars from Chinese donors with ties to Hunter Biden. Chinese donors allegedly donated millions to UPenn, and between 2018 and 2020, UC, no. So they had donated millions between 2018 and 2020.
mhm.
Also, UC Berkeley allegedly failed to disclose 220 million in Chinese state funding for a joint tech venture.
Yeah.
So, I think that would be a good thing. So,
Yeah, and it's sort of related, but I read this article. It's indirectly related to this discussion, but since we're on this path, I thought I'd bring it up because it is interesting. So I was reading an article about South Korea, and about the problems that it's having. So, quick backstory: that country was like 30 or 40 years ago, kind of a poor country, not doing well. The storyline goes, they went full on capitalist, and now it's like the 11th biggest economy in the world. We all know the kinds of products that are produced by South Korea. The country's booming, is doing great, right? But here's the problem that it has in its horizon. What they did was they went full blown, everybody's got to go to college thing, right? So they did that same kind of a push that we do here, but to a far greater degree. Think about like what Japan has done, the same thing, right? So what you do is you've now over certified everything. So everybody's got to have it. If you don't have a degree, you basically can't get a job. Or the kinds of jobs that you can get are super low paid and low prestige. And you got kids thinking that if they don't have a degree, they're nobody. So now these gigantic corporations that everybody wants to work for, they're kind of peaking out in terms of that growth. Because countries go through these wild growth phases when they go from poor to rich. But eventually, you can't grow for 30% a year, every year, like China. Same thing's happening. You just can't do that, right? Eventually, you got to be happy with a great year is 3%. I mean, the United States is like GNP is 3% growth. We're happy,
yeah.
right? 5%, we're already a mature economy. So South Korea's run into that. So now you don't have any place to place all of these kids with these degrees. So now the unemployment rate amongst these young kids is like through the roof, and a lot of them just throw in the towel and just they lay around and do nothing and don't work. It's like the lost generation they call it, right? So
Yeah.
so what happens as you have this aging? And by the way, they're not getting married, they're not having kids, which of course means you have a birth dearth, and in 20 or 30 years you start looking like Italy, where your birth rate is 1.2 and you need 2.2 to replace. Like average age in Italy is like 58 or something. Are you kidding me? When the average age of a citizen is 65. Now I'm soon going to be 65, but I don't want everybody to be 65. That's not good.
Right.
You got one young person supporting 5 80-year-olds. It will collapse. And Korea is on that same trajectory by pushing this stupid college stuff. And I just see us kind of we're fiddling around with that same thing.
Hmm.
You got young people at home laying on the couch, don't want to do nothing. They got the degree. Degree is worthless.
Look at how much the problems that we are having in America of people not wanting to go back to work.
Yeah, we hear
You
it all the
know,
time.
we do hear it all the time, and it's in every sector. They're going, we can't find people that are willing to work. I can't fathom that, Don. You know, I can't fathom that being on unemployment and sitting around collecting a check, going, oh yeah, I just want to be on perpetual
But
vacation.
you weren't told.
You
You
know,
were never told you were too good to have a job, right? You know.
no, no, and I've been working since I was 13,
Right.
and so just because that's what I needed to do,
Hmm.
and I also wanted to get ahead in life.
Well, it turns out the threat of hunger is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right, right.
They've not experienced it. They haven't even experienced the stories of it because they're now young enough that the grandparents who would have told them those stories, those grandparents didn't experience it either. I mean, their grandparents are born in like the 50s. Well, hell, in the 50s was boom time. Um,
Yeah,
those people's parents are
yeah,
gone. So, like, our grandparents told us those stories, and they were the ones who were afraid that they were still putting money under mattresses because they didn't trust the bank. They were
yeah.
onto something.
Right, right.
Maybe they weren't
For
wrong.
people paying attention.
They had fruit jars in the basement with thousands of dollars in them. Maybe they weren't crazy. We laugh at them, but I don't know. Here we are
Right,
again.
exactly,
but but
exactly.
they but this generation has not heard that, hasn't experienced it, and they think life's the
No.
gravy train. I mean, we're kind of victims of our own success in the United States. That Think about what other society in history could afford to have thousands of people doing nothing. Um,
Well, it's not sustainable.
Not-
It's not sustainable, having that. And yeah, it's not a good it's not where we should be in America by any means, and we're only talking just a few short years ago
Mhm.
that we weren't like this. We had the highest unemployment rate in so long. And frankly, I don't think we're getting the true numbers of our the inflation
Oh,
rate. I don't think we're getting the true inflation numbers.
yeah.
When you are seeing how much items are costing at the grocery store and
You raise a great issue. They are absolutely lying. The government's numbers on inflation are just a bald lie. I mean, I do the grocery shopping here, and I have a really good feel for what things cost. There's no way it's what are they saying to this now? 6, 7% or something?
yes, exactly. And it's a lot higher than
Yeah,
that.
that they're just lying, which means you got to wonder about unemployment rate and all those other things too. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
feel as nasty as it did in the late '70s, early '80s. I mean, that if you recall, that was like vicious. Um,
that was
yeah,
vicious.
but that doesn't mean that can't happen again.
Oh no. Oh no. I think we're headed there, and I think we're headed there even worse, quite frankly. That's my everything that I look at, that's what I think is going to happen. Do I want to be wrong? Oh, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'd
Please,
love to be wrong.
please let me be wrong.
But the scarier one for me is think about this. So we created this class of kids who all want to sit on their butt and get paid for sitting on their rear end, like not doing any. Think about the manual labor jobs, the blue collar jobs, right? And this administration is busy running those jobs out of the country, right? When you do things like prevent a pipeline from being built, right? Think about the thousands of those kinds of jobs, like high paying, great jobs that those would have created. The anti
Yeah,
coal mining and all these other things, right? That they keep being finding ways to be against. So we've destroyed entire swaths of industry that would have hired somebody without a college degree, um, and that would have paid great money. And so you're creating a whole class of people that what are you going to do with them? Well, they're not going to just sit on a couch forever. Eventually wind up in the street.
no, Joe, don't you wait a minute. Joe said, go get a green job, right? Don't you remember? Joe told all the welders when he shut down the pipeline, don't worry, you can get a green job.
Un, eh, you have to be pretty naive to actually think that. It's just insane. The good news here is this stuff is instantly fixable in a single election. It really is. I mean, all of this stuff, these aren't like rocket science problems to fix. The border,
No,
you could fix that in
no.
30 days. The police situation in Portland, that's like a 30-day fix. All of this stuff is simple. That's the good
Yeah.
news. It's not complicated. Like, oh my goodness, we don't know what to do. Put people in jail.
Exactly. Enforce the laws on
Enforce
the
the laws.
books. Quit cherry picking on the
Yep.
laws. Enforce the laws on the
Enforce laws.
books. Hold people
Yeah.
accountable that are thieving and looting and
Yeah.
rioting. And
Yeah. This is
yeah, and I'll tell you, Donald J. Trump would turn this right around.
in about 6 months, it'd be a different place. It would be.
Around the world, it would be a different
Oh,
place.
sure. Because weakness
Yeah,
emboldens these people. They also, we
yeah,
talked about this back when they did the Afghanistan thing. Is it any
yeah.
surprise this is happening in Israel? We just basically screamed that we are a really weak, sorry, what do you call it, ally. We are a sorry ally. I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
only reason that China doesn't invade Taiwan is because they're really weak too. Don't want anybody to know it. Otherwise, it's done
Well,
that
I'll tell
time
you,
ago.
I'm fearful, Don, that that's exactly what's going to happen. That China will, because the U.S. is spread really thin, and quite frankly, we couldn't even afford, in my opinion, from what I read, and I'm certainly don't have the inside scoop on this,
Mhm.
to be in a war over that and defending that as well.
But here's the good news: within all that, China is really weak too.
Yes.
They're too weak.
Yes, things are falling apart in China, quite frankly. They really, really are. They've been doing so much expansion
Mhm.
that their infrastructure and their own money is about to collapse. Their whole housing, They've
It's
are a
fake.
lot of industry over there is
Yeah,
collapsing.
it's fake. Like, remember in the Soviet Union, they would build these cities and the cities would be empty. I mean, China's done the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah, they
Places,
have.
and they have the same problem Italy has, but multiplied times how many more millions, right? Uh,
Yeah,
the place is a disaster. It's like this: if we had a halfway decent administration, all that president would have to do is like just push. It's like you have a garage that's falling apart and rotten. All it needs is a little shove, kind of like the Soviet Union when Reagan was in office. All it needed was a little shove to fall apart, you know.
right,
And
right.
Reagan and Thatcher and I can't remember and Pope John Paul, right? And Walensa in Poland just gave it a little
Yeah,
shove that it needed, right? Which would give you an arm and a leg to have a Thatcher and a Reagan around,
yeah.
you know.
So, we're talking about the and I see the comment there that Marjorie says, hey, there's a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds who are great kids. We're not saying they're great, they're not great kids. There are a lot of great younger people and kids, but there are so many that just want to do nothing. But here's a story that I'm posting right now. And that is, so we talked about education a little bit ago and foreign funding. The ACT scores continue to fall despite billions in federal funding to prevent learning loss. But the thing is, Don, when they're trying to teach about genderism
Mhm.
and things that are not going to help you get ahead in life.
Yeah.
This is the problem. But this is scary, Don, because the ACT scores fell for the sixth consecutive year in 2023.
And really, it shouldn't be any surprise because they're not focused on academics. This is not
No,
a money problem. They don't need any more money, but
nope, they
they
don't.
need to change what they're doing. Um, I you know,
So during the 2022-2023 school year, 43% of students met none of the benchmarks for college readiness for any academic subject.
well, you see these man on the street interviews where they'll be on a prestigious college campus. I'm not talking about East Podunk U. They'll be at places like UCLA, US places, and these kids can't answer any questions that were basic knowledge to like our generation, right?
Yeah.
Just stuff that you can't walk around in Western civilization and not know, and they didn't know it. Like, what day is Independence Day, right? I mean, just unbelievable stuff. Uh,
Yeah. Why do we celebrate
yeah.
Independence Day? I mean, it,
Hey, here's
it
the thing.
is unbelievable.
You
And
know
they
what?
just go, and I don't care, and I'm not voting.
What is the genesis of Christmas Day? Actually heard that one. Didn't know it. Um,
Wow.
that
Yeah. And that's where, frankly, we as a society have to get back to really teaching the youth and not this other extracurricular fluff that they're trying to shove down their throats, but getting it back to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And
Well, Sonny, I think what's happened is we've been conditioned over the last 60 or 70 years to turn over the raising of our kids to somebody else completely. Now, I'm not saying
oh
that if you go back to, like, I remember when I was in school, you probably remember this too. Public schools were generally good, and you had really strong PTAs where parents would, the Teacher Parent Association. I remember our parents going to those meetings. Parents were really involved. Parent walked into school, everything shut down because there was a parent in the room. I mean, the public schools in a lot of ways behaved like private schools then. But that also implies that you have parents who are engaged in their kids' learning. What's happened over the last 60 years is parents have become less and less engaged in that. They want somebody else to literally raise their kid. They're feeding them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And they're getting them bus rides back and forth. So kid goes to school at 7 in the morning, comes back after sports or whatever events they got at like 8 at night. When in the hell are you parenting? Well, you're not. So you've turned that over to people you don't even know. Let's to go to the next level.
right, you haven't even interviewed them for the job.
Never met these people, and they're around kids whose parents you don't even know. most of whom you probably wouldn't spend 20 minutes with, right? And then you're shocked when they pop out the other end, these hedonistic, narcissistic train wrecks that you see in the social media. And then, by the way, then you multiply that with by a factor of 10 with something that wasn't around when we were around, which is social media, right? So
Yeah.
it's a flaming train wreck. Um,
Well, it is, and it's been going on for quite a while in our country. And but through all of we've seen some changes that have been, I think, for the positive through COVID, of people going, "Oh, whoa, I don't want, is this what my kid is learning?"
well,
Right?
well, there's the good news though. As bad as it sounds, COVID was a blessing. It wasn't all bad. The blessing was it pulled the cover back on the like the Wizard of Oz behind. Who's that behind the curtain? And a lot of people saw that, and so now things like private school and homeschooling have gone up through the roof, and public school enrollment's dropping like a rock because people are saying, "I can't have my kid in here." Now, even if you take steps to fix it, which I get, like, think of it this way: if I go out there and get involved in the school boards and all that stuff, which we should do, right? But how long does it take to
Yep.
turn? In the meantime, your kid's in that. So if it takes you 2 or 3 years to turn it around, that's 2 or 3. Your kid, you'll never get those 2 or 3 years back, right? Um,
Yeah.
Between the age of 6 and 12, that's pretty much what you got. If you don't handle that 6 to 12 thing, then you're going to be dealing with 30s and 40s. That's not going to be pretty.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Well, to round up today, the other news that we have is going to the Speaker of the House. So how do you think not having the Speaker has affected anything regarding American support for Israel with all of this?
I don't. This is my general response to anything having to do with government. Whenever it can't do anything, that's a good thing. So I haven't thought it through in terms of the response to what's happening in
Yeah.
Israel, but the
Yep.
less government can do, the better. Um,
Yes. And so, well, today I guess there was a closed door meeting, and Steve Scalise won the nomination to be the speaker, and Jim Jordan has gotten behind that because, okay, he's won the nomination. And so apparently they're going to be coming, I don't know when, because I haven't seen any update,
mhm,
but they are going to be coming out and having a floor vote.
mhm,
Um, I'm maybe tomorrow. I don't know.
mhm. Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully the U.S. will be in support of it.
Yeah, it's going to be on Wednesday here. Master refers to the House Republican Conference meeting today, and so today was that. Maybe tomorrow,
Mhm,
and because we have to continue on, without a speaker, it's my understanding all the committee work is not going on.
mhm,
Unless the interim speaker is allowing that, because there is an interim speaker
mhm.
until we're not like totally speakerless.
Yeah.
But so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that. Of those two men, I'm happy. I'll be happy with either one of them.
Yeah, and I don't claim to know a lot, but what little I've read, I like them both. I feel like they both are have integrity. I'll put it that way, right? Because that's the thing that's lacking.
Yeah.
And I think the last guy didn't have any integrity, and it was whatever the price was to get rid of him. It was a good one.
Yeah. So I see that Pat says, with no speaker, we'll have to hear President babbles. Well, let me tell you, I saw something the other day. One day you see Biden he can't even make a sentence, right? And he's still reading either notes or the ticker tape, but then he gets up and makes a speech without an error. How does that happen? Is there a body double in there making that happen?
That's I had not thought about that. We all know it can be done. Um, I don't know. The other question is when are they going to jettison him? We got what 12? We
Yeah,
got 12 months to go. Uh,
right.
you know,
I think it's coming,
no.
but I don't know. When are they going to?
Mhm.
We'll see. There's lots of talk and speculation, but it baffles me how he can barely put anything together, can't even find himself like Trump did the thing on at his rally, where's Biden? Which way does he go off the stage? There's stairs to the right and stairs to the left, and he turns around and we've seen him shaking the hands of somebody who's not even there, reaching out, to I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's
we're laughing, but yet this is supposed to be the leader of our country,
well,
and it is pitiful.
any thinking person knows he's not. There's other people making those decisions. He's just the figurehead. Um, but yeah, you do wonder. Is I think the calculus has got to be this: do they think that it benefits them to keep him there relative to the obvious other guy, who's I think it's the governor of California? Um,
Yeah,
is he so
yeah,
awful that it'll be no improvement? I don't know. I'm sure they'll be hashing out those numbers, though. You can bet you about him
I'm sure they will.
because he has a pretty bad baggage. Also, I mean, California is not exactly a shining example of how things ought to be done. Um,
Oh no, 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 failing California. It's awful. It's awful what's happening down there.
well,
Well, hey Don, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us tonight, and share Captive Audience around to your friends, family, and neighbors. And we appreciate you tuning in.
thanks much, everybody. It's always great to hear you, see you, or you to hear me, or
Yes,
something like that.
thank you.
Bye,
Good
everybody.
night.